And in signs of mounting trouble for cryptocurrencies, Russia will block access to websites of exchanges that offer cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. Russian central bank has called cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin dubious. The financial authorities initially treated any sort of money issued by non-state approved institutions as illegal, saying they could be used to launder money. Later, the authorities accepted globally booming market of cryptocurrencies but want to either control the turnover or to limit access to the market. Bitcoin, the most well-known virtual currency that emerged in mid-2010, last traded at around $4,807, up from its initial price of less than $1,000. Before Russia, even China has banned initial coin offerings, which means raising money through cryptocurrencies. And signaling a recovery in Europe's third biggest economy, Italy has gained pace in production. Italy industrial output has increased 1.2% from July. Even Italy's manufacturing confidence index is better and rose last month. The consumer morale in Italy also gained as both executives and households shared the government optimism about the pace of recovery. So Italy is EU's third largest economy. Recovery has seen there. It's quite visible in Italy now. And the production has beaten forecast as far as the quarterly production goes. Industrial output has increased 1.2% from July as far as Italy's production is concerned. And Italy's GDP, or gross domestic product, will expand 1.5% this year and at a similar pace in the next 2 years. The August production increase was the fourth consecutive monthly rise and was led by gains in intermediate goods such as basic metals, rubber and even plastics. And moving from Italy to Germany, in signs of improvement in EU's largest economy, German trade activity has picked up in August. Trade surplus has also widened as exports outpaced imports. This has added to the evidence that Europe's biggest economy, Germany, performed strongly in the third quarter. So Germany has shrugged off the strong euro impact. Exports have seen surged in EU's largest economy. German economy grew by 0.7% in January-March quarter, which means the beginning of year. Thereafter, there was slowdown, and now economy is up by 0.6% in the second quarter. Germany's seasonally adjusted exports were up by 3.1% on the month, while imports were 1.2% up. It was the strongest export growth reading in 12 months, easing concerns that a stronger euro might dent sales of German goods and services abroad. The figure suggests that German economy, Eurozone's growth engine, is set for a solid expansion in the third quarter despite uncertainties about the makeup of the next government following national elections last month. And news from India, where in a move that could give a boost to PM Modi's push to encourage local manufacturing, Dassault, the French maker of Rafale fighter jets, may build its business aircraft in India. The cost of building the Falcon 2000 planes in India would go down, giving the company competitive edge. Paris-based company Dassault wants to deepen its ties with the South Asian country after it bid for a defense contract worth $11 billion to supply 126 Rafale aircraft and eventually won an order for only 36 planes last year. India had initially agreed to buy all the 126 jets under a long delay deal, even mandating Dassault to build some of them locally. And Finnish telecom giant Nokia is going on a cost-cutting drive and plans to reduce up to 310 jobs from its Nokia Technologies unit. It will also halt development of its VR, or virtual reality camera, OZO, and hardware. Nokia unit has about 1,090 employees, and the potential cuts are expected to affect staff in Finland, the US, the Britain, and other parts of the world too. Nokia employed about 102,000 employees as of end June Nokia, whose main business is now telecom network equipment, has launched Camera last year as the first device for its digital media business, one of its now hope for future growth. In a plan that could benefit highly skilled Indian workers, US President Trump has proposed a merit-based immigration system. But the plan also prevents Indians from sponsoring their extended families. The move is part of an aggressive plan which President Trump said will serve national interest. However, there was no reference to H-1B visas, the most sought after by Indian IT professionals, in the proposal which Mr. Trump has sent to Congress. So US President Trump's new immigration plan that will benefit Indians because it is based mostly on merit-based immigration system. And highly skilled Indian workers stand to gain more after the plan. Trump said the plan will serve national interest. In the proposal which Donald Trump has sent to Congress, besides overhauling the country's green card system, the Trump administration's wish list also includes funding of a controversial border wall along the US-Mexico border and crackdown on unaccompanied minors entering the country. The move to establish a merit-based immigration system could benefit highly skilled Indian immigrants, especially those from IT sector. However, the new policies would badly impact those thousands of Indian Americans who want to bring in their family members to the US, particularly their aged parents. The demands were denounced by Democratic leaders in Congress who had hoped to forge a deal with Donald Trump to protect younger immigrants known as Dreamers who were brought to the US illegally as children.
Getting massive border control. We're working on
And have you ever taken out a risky loan or gambled at a casino even while you were losing? The new Nobel Prize winner for economics can tell you why you make those kind of financial decisions. Now, University of Chicago Professor Richard Thaler is of the opinion that new Nobel Prize winner, and we will tell you more about it. Wion's Andy Rosegun caught up with him. Takes a look at the celebration for him.
Shot of this. They were popping the bubbly Monday morning at the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business.
Richard Thaler.
And it was a long ovation for the newest Nobel Prize winner of economics, Richard Thaler, who gave a brief and dry-witted thank you to the school after getting that very early morning wake-up call from the Nobel Prize committee.
They say, whatever you do, don't tell anybody for the next hour. Like, there's a lot of people that are awake waiting, waiting for your call.
Traditional economists have believed that people would always act in their own best economic interests, and that with large enough groups of people involved and with large enough at stake, any errors and deviations would cancel one another out. But Thaler has spent years looking more at the mind than the money.
I've used the strategy of corrupting the youth, and whose minds are not already made up.
Thaler has long argued that we do not act rationally with our money, that we use our gut feelings to keep on gambling at a casino even when we've already won big money, or when we keep losing big money. Thaler calls that the hot hand fallacy. Or how Americans were certainly not rational in the days leading up to the American financial crisis of 9 years ago.
People took out mortgages that they wouldn't be able to pay back. People loaned them money, knowing they wouldn't be able to pay it back.
Thaler's Nobel win provides a huge boost for the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business.
It was not a shock. I think it was clear that he should get the Nobel Prize, and it was a matter of time as to when he would get it. We just didn't know it would be this year.
University officials say they had no idea this announcement was coming, but they were up at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch on TV, just in case. Governments around the world are starting to apply Thaler's work when it comes to tax collections and retirement accounts. And for students here who are just starting out their adult financial lives, Thaler's work is invaluable.
I certainly have that voice in the back of my mind that your perception of the odds and your perception of risk is flawed.
Understanding how humans behave, not just in gambling, but in their everyday lives, is very important for rational decision making.
And the answer for dealing with an irrational mind? Thaler says more companies need to automatically set aside their workers' pay for retirement, and that we all need to save more in general and curb our risky financial behavior.
Everything looks risky to me. The whole world looks risky to me. And I think the biggest puzzle is why the volatility is so low. I'm baffled by that.
Thaler's Nobel Prize win includes an award of over $1 million. Thaler jokes that he plans on spending that money as irrationally as possible.
Anytime I spend any money that's really fun, I'm going to say that came from the Nobel Prize.
Andy Rosen in Chicago for Wion.
And moving on to Britain now, UK Prime Minister Theresa May has set out post-Brexit options for Britain on how it could operate as an independent trading nation, even if no trade deal is brokered with the European Union. Addressing the House of Commons, Prime Minister May said a real and tangible progress has been made in the Brexit talks. The Prime Minister also confirmed that Britain would remain subject to the rulings of European Court of Justice during the 2-year transition period after Britain leaves the European Union in March 2019. In her first address to the House of Commons since her Florence speech last month, PM May reiterated her call for a deep and special partnership between a sovereign United Kingdom and the European Union. She added that she is optimistic about Britain moving and receiving a positive response from the European Union regarding the divorce proceedings.
Many of the detailed arrangements that will underpin this. We want our departure from the EU to be as smooth as possible. It wouldn't make sense to make people and businesses plan for 2 sets of changes in the relationship between the UK and the EU. Second, we should concentrate on negotiating time and capital on what really matters, the future long-term relationship we will have with the EU after this temporary period ends. During the implementation period, people will continue to be able to come and live and work in the UK, but there will be a registration system, an essential preparation for the new immigration system required to retake control of our borders. And our intention is that new arrivals will be subject to new rules for EU citizens on long-term settlement.
However, the European Commission has hit back at Prime Minister May's comments, warning May that her government still has more work to do before the Brexit deal can be struck.
There is a clear sequencing to these talks, and there has been so far no solution found on step 1, which is the divorce proceedings. So the ball is entirely in the UK court.
And staying with Brexit, in a meeting with top UK business leaders on Brexit issue yesterday, PM May has assured them that they could be certain about a 2-year transition period after Britain's exit from EU. PM May is trying to ease company concerns that Britain could crash out of EU without a deal. So PM May has assured the 2-year Brexit transition for businesses and business chiefs from GlaxoSmithKline, Vodafone. They were part of meet yesterday. HSBC and other major companies were also among the companies that met PM May. Businesses were alarmed by slow Brexit negotiations. Reports say almost all business leaders have expressed concern about access to talent after Brexit, and several of them told May that investment cycle means there are decisions coming at the end of 2017 and the start of 2018. UK businesses are alarmed by the prospect that Britain could leave the trading bloc EU without a new trading arrangement in place in 2019. Yesterday's meeting was attended by UK Finance Minister Philip Hammond, UK's Trade and Commerce Minister and Exit Minister too. Business chiefs previously complained that their voice has been drowned out by disagreement and division in the government, and they have not heard anything to give them the certainty they need to plan and invest in their businesses.
With With permission, Mr. Speaker, I would like to update the House on our plans.
And India has a new friend for its oil needs. The first supply of crude oil has arrived from the US at the Paradip port in India's east coast. But this is bothering Iran, India's long-time oil supplier. Here is a report.
India's major oil needs are being met from OPEC, the cartel of 14 oil-producing nations. OPEC accounts for 86% of the country's crude oil needs, but there's a new player challenging this monopoly. India has got its first shipment of crude oil from the United States. Oil Minister Dharmendra Pradhan wasted no time in telling OPEC that Delhi has more options and won't hesitate in exploring them.
We expect a reasonable price. We know for the continuous production, there must be price stability. Price stability must be also in interest of consumer. That's the consistent stand India is taking.
For one, American oil is cheaper, saving India $2 per barrel. Among the first to react was Iran, India's third largest oil supplier.
Resolution 2231 of the United Nations and also Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And you know, the process of negotiations between Iran and 5+1, I think that these kind of efforts and these orientations or political orientations are not constructive.
Iran's displeasure isn't hard to understand. India's move not only cuts Tehran's oil revenues, it also limits its access to US dollars, further isolating it from global economic activity. India has significantly cut its oil supplies from Iran in recent months. Tehran has retaliated by withdrawing certain concessions to Indian refiners. But India is a market it doesn't want to lose, least of all to Trump's America.
With the major exporters of oil and gas, especially Iran, which is one of the giant exporters through the OPEC organization, and we do believe that India and Iran can have and can improve their relationships despite the pressures that can be posed from different types of players, especially the United States or the European countries. And Iran looks at the exportation of oil more economically than from the political perspective.
Dropping oil prices continue to hurt OPEC nations. Added competition in the international market is pushing prices lower still, well below $60 a barrel, a price that hurts the shrinking profits of Gulf nations. Bureau Report, Wion.
And moving over to China, where China's forex reserves have hit the highest in the world. And they have climbed further now. Its reserves rose for the 8th month in a row to over $3.1 trillion in September as pressure from capital outflow eased. In January, forex reserves plunged below $3 trillion, but as the economy stands on a firmer footing and yuan continues to stabilize, the stockpiles has increased steadily since February. China's swelling forex reserves have climbed to $3.1 trillion. The forex reserves have increased by $16.98 billion, which is around $17 billion in September. Reserves had shown gain of $10.8 billion in August this year. China's gold reserves are down to $76 billion. It was the first time that reserves climbed for the 8th month in a row since June 2014, bringing the total to its highest level since October 2016. The world's State Administration of Foreign Exchange of China said that economic growth has remained stable and sound since the beginning of the year, and yuan has appreciated steadily, while cross-border capital flows have stayed stable, which contributed to forex reserves' gradual rebound consumption. Services and new innovation-driven economic sectors are taking up larger roles in the economy, prompting global institutions such as IMF to raise GDP forecast for China.